All right, welcome back, everyone. My name is Georgia Thompson, and I am a Senior State Systems Specialist with Nemours Children's Health, and I will be leading us in a refocusing activity before we jump back into the convening. So if you'd like to join us, let's begin our practice by taking a quick inventory of how we're feeling. Name the feeling to yourself. Maybe you're feeling energized or calm, relaxed, or maybe even anxious. Now relax your gaze. You can lower your eyelids a bit, close your eyes, or even face away from the computer screen. You just need to stay within earshot. Plant your feet flat on the ground. Rest your back against the back of your seat. Rest your hands on your lap. You can have your palms facing up or down, whatever feels comfortable. You may even want to stand up to stretch your legs. Again, just do what feels comfortable. Since the theme of today's convening is outdoor learning, I'd like for you to envision yourself outdoors doing something you enjoy, almost like you're watching yourself. This activity you enjoy, is it going for a walk or a run, gardening, relaxing on the porch or the deck? Maybe you see yourself at the pool or the beach. Just think of an activity outdoors that brings you joy. As you're watching yourself, what do you see? Let's start by focusing on your face. Do you see a smile or a laugh or a look of peace or contentment? Let's move down to the arms and legs. What are they doing as you engage in this activity? Are they relaxed or active? Feet, are they relaxed or active? Now I almost want you to zoom out of this view of yourself. Take a look at the environment around you. Look up, down, and around. What do you see? Are there trees, grass, sand, flowers, buildings? Are there people or are there animals present? Now let's shift your focus on something that's moving in the environment. Maybe there's grass or leaves swaying in the breeze. Perhaps there's an object in motion, a kite flying in the sky, wheels turning on a vehicle. Pay attention to any patterns in the movement. And finally, I'd like for you to find a color in the environment to focus on. Maybe it's a flower, a bench. Think about what drew you to that color. What feelings do you associate with this color? Now shift your view back to yourself, doing what you enjoy in the outdoor environment. Now let's check back in on how you're feeling. Name the feeling again to yourself. Note if it's the same as before or different. Maybe you want to hold on to this feeling throughout the rest of the afternoon, or maybe you want to let it go. Maybe you want to release it. So that wraps up our practice. So you can flutter your eyes open, refocus, join us back on the screen, and welcome back to the convening. I hope you enjoyed that activity. If you'd like to, you can share a word of reflection in the chat, and we're going to move forward with the convening. So we're going to resume. So at this time, we are going to hear from some of our state partners about their work in promoting outdoor learning environments. Please be sure to visit our convening website where you can find bios for all of our speakers. The upcoming presentations will feature a few of our state leads and their state partners. First up is South Carolina, who will share with us on embedding outdoor play and learning into South Carolina's ECE system. I'd like to introduce you to State Lead Misty Pearson. Misty is an early care and education consultant with the South Carolina Department of Health and Environmental Control. I'll hand it over to you, Misty.
Thanks, Georgia. All right, good afternoon, everybody. Before I actually start, I would like to acknowledge that we have our Director of Child Care Licensing that's participating in this presentation. I think we are very fortunate in South Carolina to have a licensing director that is has been open to learning more about this and how it can fit into the South Carolina regulations. So I'm not going to take a tremendous amount of time in my presentation because I would like for y'all to be able to hear what she has to say and think of any questions you might have for her. So next slide, please. So Grow Outdoors South Carolina is our collaborative effort to improve outdoor spaces in licensed child care centers in South Carolina. So when this started, you might have noticed on the NLI slide, we did call it Preventing Obesity by Design South Carolina, very much modeled after what was happening in North Carolina. But we learned through this that it really, as we started becoming more involved, it really had a broader message, and it resonated to shift away from the Preventing Obesity by Design to a different name. So we're Grow Outdoors. It is led by the South Carolina Department of Health and Environmental Control and the Division of Early Care and Education at the South Carolina Department of Social Services. And that division at DSS combines or oversees child care licensing, the quality rating and improvement system, the child and adult care food program, and South Carolina's ECE professional development system. So there are several systems within the Division of Early Care and Education. And then we also have other partners that support this effort. And this has been important. They've more so come on board as we have built momentum, but we have South Carolina Child Care Resource and Referral. So really thinking about that professional development and training. We have our infant and toddler program. We have our state school readiness partner at the state level. And then we have our local partnerships for school readiness that are all involved. And so all of this is really, I would say, given guidance by our Grow Outdoors. If you hear me say Go SC, we call it Go SC for short, an advisory group. So all of these groups I just mentioned are part of our advisory group. Next slide, please. So our mission is to transform early childhood outdoor spaces into diverse, naturalized environments that spark play and learning. And so again, you notice it doesn't have, if you were to read this, you may not think health, obesity, but we have created values that really speak to what we want to do in the outdoor space, which gets to some of the health aspect, inclusion, strengthening our partnerships. And so what's important here is we work together. This advisory council, all these other entities have come together and we've come up with our mission and our vision and our values. So it is a very much a collective effort in South Carolina. Next slide, please. So what is Grow Outdoors? Again, very much based on what NLI has done so well in North Carolina, but Grow Outdoors really is a movement to get children outdoors, but we look at it in terms of there's 3 buckets. So it really is about providing information and resources that encourage young children to be active and use natural materials, objects, and settings to support play and learning. We will be developing more and more resources and providing this. So know that some of this is under development, but this is what Grow Outdoors is intended to be. A big piece of the information and resources will be the development of a website, a Grow Outdoors SC website, not yet developed, but hopefully will be soon. Professional development. So as we've gone through this, there has been a lot of interest. And I should say we started this, what was that, 2013? So it has been a long time building in South Carolina. So 10 years now we've been working on this. And so as we've been doing this, more and more entities or organizations have become interested. And so I'm sure y'all know it's sometimes hard to have a handle on what everybody's doing and what everybody is saying. And so to Robin's point about language and terminology, we've tried really hard in South Carolina to get everybody on the same page. So the professional development is for the systems as well as the child care providers. And then we have an arm that really is dedicated to design assistance. And so that will be for those programs that really want to go further than just say learning and skill development, but we will be partnering with I'm going to say it because if you put it out there, things should happen, right? So we're going to be partnering with the Early Childhood Health Outdoors as part of the National Wildlife Federation and the Natural Learning Initiative to scale this up over the next 5 years as it relates to the design assistance in South Carolina. All right, next slide. So a little bit of what I think they wanted us to speak to from South Carolina's perspective is how we have developed this in our state. And I will say, I don't think we had any intentional thoughts of how to do this when we started. We put standards in place in 2012 in the quality rating and improvement system. And almost immediately we heard from providers, yes, we're happy to take children outdoors the twice a day for the max amount of time, but they're bored and there's nothing to do. We have a structure and a lot of sand, and the children are asking to go back indoors. And so it really was our research and trying to find something to meet their need, where we found out about the Natural Learning Initiative and Preventing ABC by Design. And so it was 2013, we reached out and said, hey, we would like to meet you. And so we scheduled a visit to North Carolina. And I think what really started us down the path of top down is it wasn't just myself. We included the program leaders from the Quality Rating and Improvement System. The division director of early care and education from DSS attended that site visit. So we really had those high ECE leaders participate in this initial visit to go learn about POD and what could be done in South Carolina. I will say, and Cynthia will speak to this some, we did not have licensing at that first visit to North Carolina, but they were in the picture shortly thereafter. Once we had that visit, I'm going to tag team this a little bit. We had a delay. We were looking for some funding. I guess it was 2 years later, we've identified some funding. And so we started with the creation of demonstration sites. So we still, at the same time, we're having these high level conversations. We were looking at, okay, what does this look like on the ground? So we did work with NLI to develop 5 sites initially in 2015. And I would say at that point, top down, bottom up, it really started merging because we were learning so much of what was happening on the ground. That's where we were seeing what needed to happen from the top down level. So licensing was included at that very first training for these 5 programs we work with. So that is when licensing came really, I would say, into the picture, is that first training where NLI came to South Carolina, we asked licensing and the fire marshals, Cynthia will speak to that, come to hear what this was all about. From there, we had strategic discussions with partners. This is a great idea, but what is our capacity as a state to do this? Who is interested? Who can lead this effort? And so those, again, were high-level discussions with our public health agency, with the Department of Social Services. We engaged Clemson University at that point, their Department of Landscape Architecture, our child and adult care food program. So we had some really high-level discussions about what does this look like, and is there truly an interest? It could not be a public health department only driven initiative. From there was an update to our quality rating and improvement system. And so they made the decision, because they had been in this, that if we're going to update what's in our indicators, let's add outdoor learning. So those were added, and we worked with NLI to shape the language. We only have 2 indicators, but still we have an indicator that actually addresses the outdoor space in terms of activity settings, and then one that addresses naturalization. So that was a huge win right there. We put it into the quality rating and improvement system. And then we continued to facilitate dialogue across all the divisions, across the quality rating and improvement system, across licensing, and with the South Carolina Child Care Resource and Referral, to really talk about what is it we're trying to do. What is the message we are giving? If you go out and one site has a tree stump, are we all saying the same thing? Is that okay? Not okay? So there was a lot of dialogue happening at that higher level. That was a result of what we were seeing on the ground, because we still had sites that were being developed that were saying, this is an issue. I'm hearing this is an issue, or I've been told I can't do this. So it really helped us have those conversations at the top level by having some programs developed on the ground. And then we did initially, before the springboard, we had in 2017, the Department of Social Services funded a cohort to go through the certificate course. And it was a mix of some state level staff and some providers. And that was good, but we didn't do much with it then in 2017. It really for us was when we received the Healthy Kids, Healthy Future funding, and the certificate opportunity became available again, that we really focused on state level staff. We knew at that point that we really needed to get some alignment across the systems in what we were saying and how we were going to support this as a state. And so I guess it's probably 120 people maybe plus from child care licensing, our quality rating and improvement system, our food program system, our inclusion collaborative. I mean, many of the state programs have gone through the certificate course really as kind of that, let's set some foundational knowledge about what this is and what it's going to look like in South Carolina. And so all of that really, that and what was happening on the ground, we tweaked everything and kept funneling it back to this advisory group of how are we going to address this or implement this in South Carolina. And then at the same time, we started to increase local level partner engagement, which is really the school readiness group and more that South Carolina Child Care resource and referral on the ground. What are they doing with programs who are starting to say, I want to do this. I want to do this, but I don't know what to do. So we were really starting to struggle with how do we make sure that we're all understanding the way we want to approach this in South Carolina and that we're using best practices. So I think it's important, you know, we have a memory of how we think it transpired. And I think it's really helpful for others to hear Cynthia share their view from licensing. So Cynthia Lara is our Director of Child Care Licensing. So I'm going to turn it over to her and she's going to talk about her perspective from licensing and how she feels it's worked or where there could be improvements.
Okay, thank you, Misty. If we could go to the next slide, please. So as we think about child care licensing and our role in this, I think it's really important to first understand that in South Carolina, child care licensing is a very formal process. We have supervisor staff, we have some lead licensing specialists that have all received the National Regulatory Professional Credential from NARA. We are very traditional in our inspections, if you will. So, to that regard, so are our child care providers. They are very traditional in how they set up their playgrounds. Most of them have very large manufactured structures that have to meet the Consumer Product Safety Commission rules. Grow Outdoor gives us an opportunity to discuss those alternatives to these large manufactured playground equipment. Additionally, you know, we're supposed to protect and prevent the harm of children. So if you keep that in mind through the rest of my presentation, that'll kind of give you an idea of where licensing was coming from. Next slide, please. So when all of this came about, Misty and what we call ABC Quality, which is the QRIS system here in South Carolina, began discussing obesity and how to address that in South Carolina. We were invited to attend the meeting. So we attended that meeting. It was very informative, but we just kind of sat there and listened to everything. And so from that though, and Misty and I have talked about this, but from that, Misty and I, along with the QRIS system folks, which we're all housed together, not Misty, but Misty gave you an outline about where we sit in the Division of Early Care and Education. We all started developing this relationship. And so from time to time, they would reach out and say, hey, Cynthia, what about this? Hey, Cynthia, what about this? And then from there, it was important for us to understand the core function of licensing. We began discussing opportunities to help providers discover alternate ways of utilizing their playgrounds. We began meeting more frequently, and when I felt like I was a part of the team, not just an add-on, and by me, I'm talking about the entire licensing department, it was important for us to be a part of the team. We didn't want to be considered as an add-on, oh, we'll just ask them some questions. No, we need to be a part of this team, because when we're a part of the team, I can further discuss those core functions of licensing. But also on the other side, I can take back valuable information to my staff that would in fact help them to get a buy-in for what it was that we were supposed to do. And so once we got all of that, kind of situated, and we became this team player, is when things really took off. We were able to provide some advisory counsel for questions about what would be appropriate, what perhaps is not appropriate. Because, in South Carolina, we have this really interesting thing about ropes, and ropes being used in some of the natural outdoor learning environments. We just can't handle the ropes. And so, when we talk about that, that gave everybody else an idea of where we were coming from. Additionally, we took the course, the outdoor learning course, through North Carolina State University, which was really fantastic. We took that course, and it provided more for us to talk about internally as we think about outdoor learning environments. We were able to talk about risks versus hazards, and what was actually a risk and what was actually a hazard. I think when you're looking at this from a licensing perspective, all of it is a hazard, right? Every bit of it, but it's not really. And getting staff to understand the differences between the two and how you actually need risks in order to continue to grow was really important. And so continuing dialogue, having more discussions, not just internally, but also with Misty, with Robin, with Nilda, but with the understanding and knowledge from the course and through continued discussions, we were definitely advising more on the benefits to providers of an outdoor learning environment. Also, we have a unique situation in South Carolina. We actually employ fire marshals here. This was something that happened in 2008, 2009, but what it did was set the stage for us to be able to include the fire marshals, which really probably would not have happened if it was just the regular office of the state office of fire marshal. But because it was here, located here in child care licensing, we were actually able to include them so that as they are reviewing potential architectural plans, they also had an opportunity to review design plans and help us figure out how we might utilize the design plans and incorporate them in making sure that they meet the licensing requirements. Basically, it just shortened the process, and it gave us an opportunity to talk about real-time questions related to design or related to the actual implementation of the design with Misty, Robin, and Nilda if we had some questions. Next slide, please. Oh, yes, so that's me. So when you are thinking about getting started with any outdoor learning environments or actually any new initiative, one of the things that I think you need to probably consider is your relationships with licensing. It's important that you develop a relationship with licensing because you'll get firsthand knowledge of any interpretation of regulations. I mean, instead of considering licensing the naysayers, oh, no, you can't do that, and that won't work, and that sort of thing. Look at licensing with a positive lens who can help explain the regulation so that the plans can be developed with that knowledge in mind. And so when you have questions regarding a regulation, you can just reach out and call and text and email for your answers when you have those types of relationships. I mean, Misty and I, of course, we have each other's cell phone numbers when we're just texting in the middle of the night or whatever the case may be, and it's just really good to be able to have. Also, bring your partners together. Not only does it help with consistency, but it also helps to build those relationships. Y'all, that's important because it's hard to get anything done if you don't have a relationship with someone to be able to reach out and ask them a question here or there. Additionally, training is key when you're thinking about developing new initiatives. Offer the professional development opportunities for licensing staff. A lot of times, most of the things we focus on is, issuing a license, making complaints, those types of things. But it's really important to provide other professional development opportunities so that the licensing staff can have more than just a regulatory knowledge. They can also be supportive when they have other knowledge, such as outdoor learning environments. And in South Carolina, most of my staff we've had this training, including myself. We've had it and it does wonders, I tell you. But the last thing I think I would like to say, when you are developing a new initiative that's going to involve childcare licensing in some form, and you're asking providers to do these things, please make sure to ask for permission first before you implement any proposed changes, because by doing so, you could be preventing zoning issues in the future, because sometimes certain things not only requires permission from us or from the fire marshal or from your health and sanitation person, but it could also require some permits from zoning. So you want to make sure that, everybody gets excited and they want to do these great things that we have, but it's really important from a licensing perspective that you get the proper permissions up front. And then, you wouldn't have to beg forgiveness later. And, when we tell you, you're going to have to remove that, or if zoning tells you that has to come down, or they put a stop work order on your door, you don't want those things. So just remember that licensing is a good partner in this, because it helps you understand the core functions of the regulations and how they have been interpreted in that state. Develop those relationships. You can go to the next slide, please.
All right, and I will wrap it up. So Grow Outdoors, South Carolina. So we really in South Carolina took a different approach. We could have chosen to just provide technical assistance to help programs make improvements on the ground, but we really wanted to go the route of having the formal design plan. And so that's what Grow Outdoors is about when we talk about we have that design arm. So we have not officially launched. We have the name, a mission and vision, but we've been waiting on a contract and some other contracts to be in place to officially launch it this year. We have received funding to sustain this work from our Department of Social Services. We have funding for the next 5 years to implement Grow Outdoors, which would provide the website I talked about, the other resources through NLI that they'll be developing. But really a big piece of that is working with over 180 childcare providers to design their outdoor space, and then some funding for implementation. And so I know Nilda and Robin talked a bit about gardening. Our emphasis really has been on the pathway. And so that really is the primary piece that they're trying to help programs with is getting the pathway installed so they can help promote movement throughout the space. So we are really excited about that. We're just waiting on a few additional contracts to be in place, but we look at implementing this over the next 5 years. We think we have a great climate. There's no reason children can't be outdoors all year around here in South Carolina. So we just need to help them improve the environment. And then while we have funding, and that's wonderful, we're always looking for new opportunities. And so we just recently submitted another application to the USDA, and its lens was more urban forestry. And so approaching it more from climate change and naturalizing the outdoor space, maybe not the full, design process, but it would be just more an opportunity to provide funding to help programs naturalize their outdoor space. So that is where we are looking to go with Grow Outdoors over the next 5 years. We felt like we have spent a lot of time building the relationships and the partnerships. And I do want to say the one thing that's been helpful to us is we've had small pockets of funding. We've had some block grant funding, and then we had the Healthy Kids, Healthy Future funding. And so that really was funding that helped us almost pilot pieces of this. And I think that built the case for DSS to invest a large amount of funds. Like we worked through a lot of the kinks. We had those small little pilots, and the lessons learned from that really helped show them, okay, this can be done. We can do it at a larger scale. And so it is written into our child care development state plan. And so we are excited to see where we go over the next 5 years with Grow Outdoors. Next slide. And this is just one site we wanted to show. This is a site that serves children who have experienced trauma. And we think they've done a pretty awesome job. So we're excited about this one. And that is our presentation. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Misty, and thank you so much, Cynthia. And yes, that is a beautiful example of an outdoor learning environment. We really appreciate you sharing your insights and your lessons learned with us. I'm sure everyone will agree with me that that was really helpful. So now we're going to hear from Wisconsin, and Wisconsin is going to share with us on the importance of the impact of outdoor learning environments when it comes to professional development, technical assistance, and professional learning communities. First, we'll hear from Amy Meinen. Amy is the Research and Program Outreach Manager at the University of Wisconsin School of Human Ecology, as well as the State Partnerships Health Lead for Health Tide. Amy, I'll hand it over to you.
Thanks, Georgia. I just want to take a minute just to express gratitude to our South Carolina colleagues, Cynthia and Misty. Not only are you really, you're really sharing and you're leading in this area, just the gratitude that you've spent helping us here in Wisconsin, giving us advice, meeting with us. I know you're both busy. And Cynthia, your comments about licensing, I hope that that you know how much we appreciate that. We're following that advice. And so just want to express gratitude. It's hard to be the lead in this area. And so thank you so much for all of your efforts. And of course, to our NLI colleagues today, we're really grateful to you as well. Next slide, please. I'm joined by my colleague Nathan, who's going to follow me in today's presentation of what's happening here in Wisconsin. Nathan has asked me to lay the groundwork for what's happening here in Wisconsin regarding outdoor learning initiatives. Just a little bit of history here in Wisconsin is that our state has a long history of utilizing cross-sector collaborations and partnerships to get things done. And so we're really starting from a space and place of partnership. And so as Cynthia was saying, relationships really are going to be key to this work. And that is huge here in Wisconsin. We really thrive on a lot of relationships and cross-sector partnerships that we have. And that is absolutely the case in the context of outdoor learning initiative efforts, is that we're utilizing a lot of partners and relationships that were existing and also building new ones. One thing that is really critical to our work here in Wisconsin is centering these efforts in the context of policy systems and environmental change. So really thinking about our child care centers, both group and family, thinking about, how to view the changes to the child care environment and how to sustain those changes in policies and practices. So really giving a lot of this holistic approach to outdoor learning in our state. We're really excited to be building the outdoor learning pieces here in Wisconsin off of, some other major initiatives that have been touched on in the presentation so far. We're really lucky here in Wisconsin that since 2005, we've been growing a youth gardening movement here in Wisconsin. I think Nathan will comment on this in a little bit. We're up to over 800 youth gardens. So that's school-based gardens, out of school time gardens, and early childhood gardens. So we're really proud of that. We're really proud of the gardening movement, and we're absolutely going to take the advice of the NLI colleagues and South Carolina colleagues of utilizing gardening as a way, perhaps a window or a door into this work for many of our providers here in Wisconsin. In terms of resources that exist, we have Got Dirt and Got Veggies, which are resources that have been around for a while. I was talking to Nathan this morning. We think that, these are about to be 14, 15-year-old resources that have continually being updated, but I would say continue to be a mainstay of the platform that we're building here in Wisconsin. We're really fortunate that we've had the Wisconsin School Garden Network here in Wisconsin, and we've been utilizing that network, tying it to our farm to ECE work, as well as this new outdoor learning, initiatives. We also have the great fortune that we've created an online course for our providers that really focuses on gardens and how they can start one. And we've connected that to the registry here in Wisconsin, which is the institution that oversees continuing education credits for providers. Next slide, please. Another puzzle piece that we hope to take advantage of here is our farm to ECE efforts. These efforts have been going for quite some time now, since 2015. We're really fortunate that we have had a Wisconsin farm, actually say farm to school advisory council, but also we have a Wisconsin farm to early care and education work group that meets quarterly, that really has served as a peer-to-peer learning platform where people can come share resources, strategy, and also share ideas around farm to ECE efforts. We've been fortunate to have Kellogg funding. I know my colleague Dahi's on today and may speak to this as well. That investment has been huge for our state, as well as the Nemours funding, which has allowed us to expand some really important curriculums, including this new Roots in the Ground curriculum. And the goal is to really tie what we can to not only these gardening efforts in our state, but farm to ECE. So really thinking about how outdoor learning will interface with these initiatives that have been going for quite some time. What have we been up to in terms of outdoor learning environments? It really started with the Springboard opportunity here and the NC State Natural Learning and the NLI initiative, being able to take the course. We were really fortunate. We filled every slot, and I know begged Nemours colleagues for more. because we had so much interest here in Wisconsin. We were really excited to see a number of technical consultants in our state, as well as early childhood associations and organizations that support a lot of providers in our state wanting to take this course. So very excited to have that opportunity, which really got things going. It was really the kindling wood that we needed. From there, we've been able to utilize additional Nemours dollars to run a series of pilots with family and group child care centers, really focusing on providing them a mini grant to cover expenses, to try an outdoor learning strategy, as well as pairing that with training and technical assistance from my colleague Nathan, whom you'll hear from in a minute. We also funded Nathan to expand the Teaching in Nature's classroom resource, which has been wildly popular in our state. There's an online course that accompanies this resource. And so Nathan and colleagues worked to create an online course that was really early childhood specific this last year. And that, again, wildly popular. So we can sense in our state that there's a high interest in the topic of outdoor learning, and we're trying to move as quickly as we can to capitalize on it. Next slide. These are just a couple of quick snapshots of some of these resources that we've had in our state for a while. Next slide. Here's the map of the youth gardens. Again, we're super proud of the 800 plus youth gardens that exist. We encourage the gardens to become registered so that we are able to track where they are in our state geographically. Next slide. So currently, what are we doing here in Wisconsin? Again, thanks to Nemours through the Springboard opportunity, we have 4 individuals who had completed the prior initial course taking the NLI's Train the Trainer course. So very excited to have 4 people that are taking that course. And I think that course is actually wrapped up officially. I know we've talked to them and they were working on their final projects. We've also, with everyone that has taken the NIL course, we have formed a peer network of everyone that's taken the course. And our goal there is to really begin to share ideas and begin to think about how we can create a statewide movement around this. We are currently with Nemours funding here in year 5, piloting a coaching support cohort. So those that have taken the NIL course, along with another round of mini grants and pilots. So we're busy piloting the second round of efforts right now. And with Cynthia's wise words, we have luckily been connecting with our Bureau of Licensing here within our Wisconsin Department of Children and Families. We're connecting with them early and beginning to collaborate with them. They've just now connected us to regional licensors so that we can begin to connect with them across the state, because we know that programs across our state are going to have interest in this. So beginning early on, again, thanks to the advice from South Carolina to create this relationship. On a side note, we're super fortunate that one of the individuals that took the initial NC State NIL course is now a licenser. So that worked out really well, that someone who has a love and passion of outdoor learning is now in our Bureau of Licensing and has become a huge advocate for us. So again, back to South Carolina's points about relationships and maintaining these partners, super key. Another big thing that's underway is really mapping out how the outdoor learning initiatives here in Wisconsin are going to all align. You know, how do we connect our OLA work to youth gardening, to farm to ECE? How are we connecting those dots for providers and programs? We're also very excited that we recently got connected with our Wisconsin Green and Healthy Schools initiative. They predominantly have been focusing in our K through 12 schools, but now are starting to think about early childhood environments. And that actually, this initiative encompasses 2 state agencies. So we're excited to have that connection. We're also exploring a connection to SNAP-Ed in our state through FoodWise. We're really fortunate that one of the individuals that's taken the Train the Trainer course here in the state is connected to our SNAP-Ed programming. Lastly, we are working really hard to stay connected to some UW-Madison researchers who have put in some proposals recently to the National Institute of Health to look at youth gardening, outdoor-based activities, and youth mental health in particular. So we want to stay in the loop on that and be connected. And one thing that I didn't put on here that I heard from South Carolina is really making these resources and information about outdoor learning more publicly available to our providers and programs. And so we're working, again, thanks to Nemours funding, we were able to establish a public website in year 4 and 5, Healthy Early, that is. And so we're going to be linking these efforts there. Next slide. Actually, I'm going to turn it to Nathan. And Nathan, for some reason, I need to load your picture.
Oh, that's fine. Actually, I was going to, thank you. Thanks, Amy. I thought that was a great overview of the work we've done over the years and the connections. And oh, we can actually move right into the panel. I'm just seeing the notes in the chat, and I can mention what I was going to say during the storytelling portion.
Nathan, I think we actually wanted to go ahead and give you a few minutes so we can.
Oh, okay. Got
yeah.
it. You're intending to cut out of the panel. Okay, perfect. Well, I'm just going to add just a few things that we discussed earlier, just with that kind of overview of some of the activities here in Wisconsin. Just wanted to emphasize how important professional learning has been for our growth and connectivity. And we really learned these lessons early on in our work as we were, many of us were educators in early care and education settings or in other settings, and started to convene, realizing there were just things we were learning about outdoor learning environments, the design and the teaching that we wanted to share with colleagues. And so we started doing convenings in the garden, having educators gather for a week during the summer, for example, from a lot of different backgrounds. And we found how important that was, both for the opportunity to share best practices or great ideas, great activities, but also just for people to connect with each other. That was some of the biggest feedback we got, is that often it can feel, especially if you're trying to move forward an outdoor learning program, whether that's a garden or some kind of other outdoor exploration, that it can be a lot of work and you can feel isolated. And so just recognizing the importance of educators, providers being able to connect with each other and share stories, and some of the successes they've had overcoming various challenges. And so that really became a big part of the work we've done over the last couple of decades. It really led to the Wisconsin School Garden Network, which I think Amy shared is really a broad, it has the term school in it because we could only have one adjective really, I guess, but it really covers many hundreds of early care and education gardens and community settings, and K through 12, pre-K through 12 programs. So it really is a wonderful array of people working at all different kinds of settings around the state. And so that Wisconsin School Garden Network, and then also some of our national, that led to these national professional networks. For example, with the school gardens, our National School Garden Support Organization Network that we helped to establish and now have participated in over a decade. And that organization is really about people who are supporting garden-based education and outdoor learning around the country, sharing best practices of how to support a professional learning opportunity, like a professional development course, for example, or a convening of some sort. So I just wanted to underscore like how that's been a huge part of the work, and it's really a collective endeavor. It's really like the map that Amy showed. The essence of that is that it allows people to connect with each other because you have people's contact information, and we'd actually like to build on that and do more and more storytelling, which I'll allude to at the end. But just seeing storytelling is a big part of that connection too, that people are able to share just great ideas, resources, and connect with each other. And happy to talk more about how that's been a big part of our work. I know it's a big part of many of y'all's work too. but just wanted to share that aspect of the work. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Amy. And thank you so much, Nathan. Again, your insights have been truly, really inspirational as well as helpful here to the group.